champion and still be ranked number 8 and not get a bye.
Gotcha.
That happened to Clemson
Yeah.
last year.
We're on. Oh, wait a minute. Oh,
There's a chance they won't even have one in it. There's no guarantee. It's the top highest ranked 4 champions.
Yeah.
Conference champions.
now we're on.
All right. We'll call this December 1st, 2025 meeting of the OGRSA. This is Operations and Planning. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the building. Bad start.
Can we stop
We'll
it?
start all over again.
Reset.
We'll wait for
We don't
Celia
need
to
that
come
far
in.
to play the video record at all.
I looked at the wrong thing. I'm sorry. We'll call this December 1st, 2025 meeting of the OGRSA Board to order. Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Scott Paris.
Well, please be with us this afternoon as we do the business of the authority. Help us with our decision making, help all those that we affect, and help us to make the best decisions we can. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item C, public session. Receive comments related to topics but may or may not be on this agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? All right. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to item D, approval of the minutes. I entertain a motion for the Board of Commissioners meeting of November 3rd, 2025.
I'll make a motion that we approve these minutes.
Yeah.
November 3rd.
I'll second there, Mr. Dye.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item E, committee and other meeting reports. First one is Reconstitution Committee and Executive Committee meeting of October 9th as approved by the committee on November 13th. The Reconstitution Committee, I'm giving that report. The Reconstitution Committee continues to meet, continues to make progress. The bulk of our last conversation had to do with funds that we would set aside or how much it would cost each entity to do a financial analysis of each sewer system and a technical analysis of each sewer system, collection systems, I should say. We have a ballpark number of around $300,000. We looked at different methodologies of how that would be divided. I believe the general consensus was that we would continue to move forward in looking at 2 different consultants. One to do the financial analysis, one to do the technical analysis. We'll have more discussion on that. Is it this week? Next week, Chris?
Next week.
Next meeting. And to my knowledge, that was the bulk of that conversation. Unless anybody else remembers anything else you'd like to put in there. Operations and Planning
Do you want
Committee
to do a
meeting.
motion to accept that again?
I make a motion to accept those minutes.
I second that.
Motion and a whole side of seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Keeping me straight. Moving on now to Operations and Planning Committee meeting of November 20th, 2025. Scott Mulder.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. We had just a couple of main topic items for the meeting. The first of which was the recommendation to the board that we approve an easement granted to Central Electric that will be installing the electrical service at the new lift station for Blue Ridge Electric that will then feed not only that area but the Seneca rail site for Oconee County. The line that they need to put in will aerially cross over our sewer line easement that runs north to south in that property. The board considered that easement and has unanimously approved recommending the board to authorize the executive director to sign that easement. Second one was to approve a sales agreement with Evoqua Water Technologies. They would be providing the equipment for the final clarifier number 3 repair. The staff is asking for us to approve a sole source procurement within our policy because the equipment that we currently run is Evoqua equipment. We did ask a lot of questions about if we chose not to sole source it and go with a different manufacturer, what that meant. Kyle did a great job explaining that they would basically have to drill holes in the bottom of the tanks, reconfigure the tanks, have additional engineering work done, and it significantly increased the cost. Therefore, we, as the committee, certainly heard that request and approved the sole source and purchased the equipment through Evoqua to be recommended, of course, to the board for full approval. Total amount was like $470,462 plus a contingency. So we certainly saw the benefit of continuing with the Evoqua water technology equipment rather than seeking bids for any other type, just because of the cost avoidance. So that would continue the repair of that project. Remember, the board approved that as, I think, as an emergency item, or we redid the budget and moved some money over to that one that we were going to spend.
Yes,
somewhere
sir.
else.
That's correct.
That's right. I knew it was something. So yes, we as a committee are recommending that to the full board as well. He did also provide us an update on the target development and their efforts there to get the payment of the impact fees and modify the permit with them through DES, and also gave us an update on just the other general projects. And we also considered the reserving capacity for large developments. I think we've discussed that before, and we certainly see the benefit in approving that policy amendment to our impact fee payment policy. So we also recommended that to the full committee for approval as well. And I believe all those items are on the agenda today, if I remember correctly. And that was basically the bulk of the important items we discussed, other than some other general updates, talking about the CAPs with the cities, as well as the completed and submitted updated consent order report as required. So that was pretty much the bulk of the meeting, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. If you see fit.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Scott makes a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries.
And as Mr. Mower said, most of the things that we discussed in the O&P we're here to vote on and talk about today as well.
So we can either thank you or blame you later.
Probably a little bit of both.
Moving on, Finance and Administration Committee meeting of November 25th, 2025. Sylvia Meyer.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Other than updates of ongoing projects as well as financial reports, 2 items that the committee are recommending to the board for the approval is the supplemental budget number 2. It is the final refund to Oconee County for the Sewer South project, as well as the 2026 board and committee meeting schedule. Other than that, we did hear from the director on the possibility of some flex time, especially with the winter months coming up, and just had a conversation on that. But that was really all we had. So I will go ahead and make a motion to approve those as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Sylvia? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Moving on to item number F, Secretary Treasurer Report, Lynn Stevens.
Okay, the report is in section 4, it's exhibit A, with the graph on the back. The total cash and investments in all the accounts is $12,045,499. The reconciliations have been done for the month of October, but I'm waiting on a reconciliation letter from Susan Stamey's office again. The budget, it shows that the budget was amended for the ROM fund discounts. And you will notice on the second page, we have 5 CDs that are, actually, one just came due, or matured at the end of last month. And then we got 4 more that are maturing this month, and they'll all be reinvested for $245,000 each. And that's all I have for you.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd just like to ask a quick question. Does Miss Stamey, does she give a reason why she's always late?
Nope. I sit there and I contact her and keep reminding her, and the only thing that she's ever said to me is in the past, she has mentioned, she's doing taxes or something. But I mean, that's not every month, so.
Thanks.
And I've reached out, and Lynn and I both have spoken to someone else, another CPA, about possibly changing who handles this service for us. So we'll be discussing this, and maybe in the next few months there will be a change.
Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion that we approve the finance records for December.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item number G, presentation discussion items. Discuss modifying the normal working hours of maintenance and conveyance system staff to 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Chris Eliezer and Kyle Lindsay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll set the table with this real quick. So section 5.1A of our personnel policy manual explicitly states that the working hours for the maintenance system and conveyance system staff are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there is a portion of that paragraph that does give some leeway to me to make adjustments due to climate-related issues to allow them to come in earlier in the summertime, which typically is always, I guess it's always been 7A to 4P, so that they can get out of the heat a little sooner. And we've done that pretty much from Memorial Day to Labor Day over the past few years. The staff have liked it. They like that schedule, and with the amount of turnover that we've had in these two areas, and I mentioned this back 6 months ago when we were putting the budget together, and probably even since then, that these are two departments we continue to have the most bit of turnover in. So we look to seek ways that we can help to boost the morale of the staff, and I don't know that it's all a poor morale issue, but try to find ways to improve their conditions, to give them something that, a reason for them to want to stay here as opposed to go work somewhere else. So some of the feedback that we had gotten verbally over the last few months, if not longer than that, has been they would like to do that schedule 7A to 4P year round, to the point where we had an anonymous employee engagement survey with those staff, and of the 7 that we have more positions than that, but they were vacant, but all 7 of the respondents stated that they wanted to move to that type of schedule. So with that said, and I'm supportive of it, I'm in favor of it. Ultimately, since this is a policy matter, if we do make a change, the board will have to decide if we do allow that. And I'm not even necessarily saying we do that today, but just I'm seeking feedback as to how you would want us to approach that. If you agree to it, we can vote on it today, or we can bring it forth through committee in the future. But I'll let Mr. Lindsay address anything else that he may want to add to it.
Yeah, I'm with Chris. I'll approve anything that will just give a little more support to what the guys want, basically. And I'm good with the work schedule. It worked out during the summer. I'm good with it being that way full time.
So, just a quick question, does REWA and all these other sewer authorities have, what are their hours? Their hours about the same?
I can really only answer
really for the two other utilities that I've worked for, you know, one being Rewa, one being the city of Anderson on the drinking water side. And the department I was over at Rewa is essentially the exact same group of folks that we're talking about here. And we had the department, and I can't remember exactly right, because at the time when I was there, they had a 37.5-hour work week as opposed to our 40. So I don't remember exactly how it played out, but they worked, I would call it 4/10s, but it wasn't, you know, obviously it wasn't 4/10s on the collection system side. And they also, on the maintenance, pump station, mechanical, electrical side of things, they worked, it was a more of a flex type schedule where they worked longer hours Monday through Thursday and then worked half a day on Friday. We just don't have the staffing that they had there. I mean, the department I had at Rewa, that equivalent department had 42 people in it, whereas we have 21 positions or so here for our entire agency. So Colin, we've discussed a lot of this. If we had more personnel, we'd be in favor of looking at doing some type of an overlapping or 4-day work week for those folks. At Anderson, it was the same way. We had a staggered shift where a crew would work 4/10s Monday through Thursday. The next, the other group would work 4/10s Tuesday through Friday, so we had coverage, and then they would flip-flop the next week. So, basically everybody would have a 4-day weekend every 2 weeks. But again, we just don't have the
We
coverage
run
here.
7 to 4 in Lake Water.
Okay.
We run the same schedule.
That's, back when I was managing teams, when the factories ran 24/7, we did that. We'd have 4 10-hour days, and then the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the guys would work 12 hours and 36 and got paid for 40, and that was the way you was able to draw people to a weekend shift. So I can understand what you're saying. Yeah, anything to increase morale and help you maintain staff, I'm all for it.
And I'm not even saying that we wouldn't consider doing something even more drastic in the future, whether it's like a 4.5 or a 4-day work week. But, I bet you we've spent hours going through this to even, trying to find ways with the office folks of trying to do that. And, even covering the front, it's just too difficult to do. This is at least one area where we feel we can start, because we've already done it and found that it's been successful. And the folks downstairs do.
Turnover's costly, so anything you can do to change it, that'd be great.
Mr. Chair, this is in my opinion, a day-to-day operational management decision. So if he's looking for board approval, I'm certainly willing to offer a motion today unless there's any opposition from anybody else.
All right, we have a motion. Would anybody like to second?
I'll second that.
Got a second and a third. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Chris, Kyle,
Great.
good work.
Thank you.
Okay, Kyle, you can leave now.
Now, he wants to see what happens on one of these. Okay, his name down there. All right, moving on to item H, action items. Authorize the executive director to execute the encroachment agreement with Central Electric Power Cooperative Incorporated as detailed in Exhibit B. Chris Elliott.
All right, in your packet, at least in mine, it's under the 5th tab. You'll see a copy of Exhibit B in there. The first page is a letter from an attorney, Ryan Newton, who has worked with us to review this. Mr. Newton was put on to us to do this as I believe he is a commercial real estate attorney. Mr. Flynn is the one that recommended him to us or us to him because I don't think Mr. Flynn was able to do this one in-house. That said, we went through several rounds of getting the language where we felt that it wouldn't necessarily be favorable to us or them, but something that we felt comfortable that both of us could live with. Our biggest matter with this whole thing was making sure that we could do routine maintenance under the terms of that encroachment agreement that we had with them. So we're happy with the language we have in there now. I don't know if Florence can or will say anything about it regarding Mr. Newton's qualifications, but again, Mr. Newton stated, and I'll read here the last sentence of the second paragraph. It is, in my opinion, fair, reasonable, and enforceable to OJRSA. So with that said, I'll answer any questions. Otherwise, I do recommend that we proceed with approval of this.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this encroachment agreement by and between Central Electric Cooperative and JRSA.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
We did confirm there won't be any poles or anything buried within our encroachment area. It's just merely an aerial line across the property, and the city. Seneca also granted one to them as well across our property. So everybody has given their approval.
And there was for my sake, Mr. Mulder informed me who Central Electric Power Cooperative was, and I didn't realize they were as big as they are, but they are actually large outfit.
Yes, they are.
All right, any further discussion, comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion passes. Moving on to item H2, authorize the executive director to execute the quotation and standard terms of sale agreement with Evoca. Am I saying that correct? Evoqua Water Technologies LLC in the amount of $470,462 plus a 5% contingency for the sole source procurement of replacement equipment for the financial clarifier number 3. We're a mouthful. Kyle Lindsay, do you recommend that we do this?
I do.
All right. And OMP's already discussed this. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. We authorize the executive director to sign and purchase.
They have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
All right. Is there any further discussion or questions about finance or for Kyle? Come on, don't take it easy on Kyle. He only comes to see us when he wants something.
Well, he explained to us why it would be best to keep with these folks, because if another company came in, they would have proprietary equipment too, and they'd change it over and cost more. It just made economic sense to stick with who we have.
I'd like to also add to this that we're still going to have to bid out the installation services. This, what you're approving today, if you do so, choose to move forward with that, is only for the equipment. So we do believe that the installation services is going to exceed the $50,000 mark. Thus, we have to go out and publicly advertise for bids. So we'll have to come back before the board, most likely, to have that portion of it approved sometime within the next several weeks, if not months.
Yeah, the lead time on this equipment is like 24 weeks.
Wow.
That's short nowadays.
And well, the interesting thing with this whole thing is this is one of the items that has gotten caught up in the tariffs, which
It substantially increased the cost this year versus what it was just 3 or 4 years ago.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Is there any further discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item H3, consider policy for reserving capacity for large development. Exhibit D, Chris Elliott.
all right, thank you. In your packet, you'll find a draft document, and this has gone through several revisions. Mr. Flynn has been involved each step of the way, all the way from my just brainstorming the concept about the potential of doing this, all the way through what we have here before you today. So I'll first of all go ahead and state why there's even such a document that is being brought before you. We've had, I'd say, 2, if not more, projects during my time here that have come that would be what I would consider to be a fairly large type of a development that would be built in multiple phases, where we may be able to have the capacity in the system at that time But if there were much more building that were to take place in that general wastewater service basin, then they wouldn't be able to move forward with a phase two. And with some of the projects, you know, if not all of them, they would have involved the procurement of property, the design of multiple phases of the wastewater system. And they have been, in the past, somewhat reluctant to be able to make a commitment to moving forward with some of these developments. The Target development is one instance where this would be or could be, have been a possibility of such an instance. The city of Seneca Light and Water went ahead and reserved capacity in their system so that, you know, downstream from them, we would be able to lock in at least their first phase of their project, which is what's being constructed currently. So I began thinking back, you know, this probably goes back a year, if not longer ago than that, and about coming up with a way to allow them to somewhat reserve capacity, because we currently are first come, first served with everything that we have to do with wastewater capacity. So I began to think what would be a type of a development, not a type, but a size of a development that would qualify for this. So initially it was 150 equivalent residential units, which would equal 45,000 gallons a day. That was in the first draft back in October that I believe I presented to the O&P committee. But then after looking at it a little further, DES would require a permit for, even if it's a single building, if it hits 50,000 gallons or more, they would have to get a construction permit through the state. Thus, I went ahead and modified that for the second round to make it just an even 50,000 gallons or 166 ERUs, which is rounded down just slightly from 150 or from the 50,000 gallons. What is included in there is they are still going to have to they're going to be required to pay impact fees for the initial phase of the project for whatever they're proposing to construct. They will also have to pay what has been called a reservation fee for future phases of their development. Now, whenever they make a proposal to us to procure the future flow for the entire project, they have to provide us that amount in full when they initially make application for that first amount of capacity within the system here. They would pay the reservation fee, and that would be based on impact fees. And there's a percentage of what the impact fee would be. It would be a non-refundable amount that would go into our restricted fund if they did move forward with the project within the time frame and the other guardrails that we do have in the policy. Then they would receive a full credit for the amount that they paid in the reservation fees for impact fees associated with the future parts of that development. They still would be responsible for paying the impact fees in full for whatever the future phases are. They would just be credited with those reservation fees at that time. So I think that the committee, if I remember correctly, the committee approved it unanimously. I support the project. I'm open as to what the board would want to consider to be a quote unquote large development with flow. It could, and Lawrence, he may want to chime in, but we can't, I don't think we can restrict it to say a large development can only be an industry, or a large development can only be a subdivision. I think we would have to have it based on a gallons per day or equivalent residential unit, which, in essence is a gallons per day mechanism to determine what that would be. So that being said, this is something that I would support, and it may have to be incorporated in the future into the impact fee policy. and/or the development policy, but, right now it would be standalone until it is brought into either of the other two.
What's the pleasure of the board?
With that 50,000 gallons, I mean, we did work with all the cities, everybody, is it okay? Yeah, okay.
Well, I was gonna wait to see if we had a motion in a second. I have quite a few questions.
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion.
And I'll second.
I have a second.
Fire away.
What, does anybody else have any questions?
I do have one, and it's probably in here, and I apologize that I haven't just skimming straight over it. Just because I know that there is a developer that's going to ask if they're reserving when it comes down to phase two. Are they grandfathered in the impact fee cost at that time, or are they paying whatever current is?
It's the current, it's based on what the current fee would be.
When they're coming up with their request, I guess, for the capacity, they would apparently already have an idea in mind of what their flow would be.
That's one of the requirements, is they have to provide us with that, what that amount would be.
So why would we give them a discount versus say, okay, if you want the capacity, go ahead and buy it. That way it's not tying us up for up to 3 years with nothing, and potentially, I mean, we don't know if they're gonna go or not, but, because I know in the past we've had some that were impact fees that were paid, developments never happened, they went belly up, whatever happened, we were able to take those back off the books at a later time. But this ties it up for 3 years, where we don't really know, and we don't have our full payment on that.
We're only tracked, so, and I may be misunderstanding what you're asking, so correct me if I am, but if a project's gonna be built in multiple phases, let's say they're gonna be built in three phases, and each phase is 50,000 gallons each for a total of 150,000 gallons. When they apply for the construction permit for phase one of that 50,000 gallons, the only portion of that that's gonna hit the treatment plant is the 50,000 gallons, not the full 150,000. So,
Understand that.
so all we're doing is, it would be just an internal bookkeeping of that. We would keep that flow in the hydraulic model so that if someone else came in, it would be run with that placeholder in there for the full 150. That would make the determination as to whether we could handle that other future development outside of the one that, the so-called large development. Did
I
that?
guess my comfort level will be a lot higher if they paid the full amount and it's done, it's on the books. There's none of this back and forth as far as will they build it, will they not? If they've already got plans for phase 1, 2, 3, however many phases, then they are obviously have an idea of what's involved with it, costs and things like that. They've done preliminary calculations to know what the demand would be, what the flow would be for that.
I guess what our thought was that they don't pay the impact fee until the actual capacity permit has been issued by DES, and they won't be submitting that till phase 2 and 3 are ready to be constructed.
And that's fine too, but I'm not comfortable with holding capacity out of the system because we're struggling right now. You know, we're getting closer by the day to that 80% mark, where we're gonna have to look at doing upgrades on the system. And I don't like the idea of just having a placeholder there with, you know, if we get several of these on paper, I know it's not through DES, but that could be getting us closer to that point without really having the benefit of the funds to pay for the study and the development or the upgrade later on.
And
Just briefly, you said earlier, and I want to make sure I'm understanding that, we've had these developers come in, reserve the capacity, pay their impact fees, and not done anything with it. Were their impact fees returned to them?
No, in those cases, there's several of those that went bankrupt, they disappeared. They just kind of gone off the
Because
radar.
I know one of the,
And they would sit for years, and I think over the last probably 15 years, we've been able to pull back, 1 million gallons or so capacity?
yeah, and I think a lot of that took place before I started here. So since I've been here, and I would imagine a lot of the ones that may have gone bankrupt happened during the 2008, 2009 timeframe before my time here. But, you know, we went and reclaimed capacity maybe 2 years ago. I think we went and cleaned up our DES checkbook. And I don't think there were any of them that I could recall, because I did go back and research it, because if they had paid an impact fee and we took back the capacity, I believe that we had to refund their impact fee. So I don't think that there were any that we did that with in my time here. But
Well, so in our discussion at the O&P, didn't we say that if they pay this money up front, if they don't do it, we keep the money
Yeah,
now, right?
that's correct.
That was a big selling point for me.
Yeah, if they walked away, then it was a non-refundable. That's why it was, considered to be a reservation fee instead of them paying the impact fee that would be refundable. And I don't know, Lawrence, you want to talk about that for a second?
Sure. And so, first I'll address Scott's question about doing this at all. So at the end of the day, this is also a board decision. You're contemplating making an amendment to your impact fee policy to effectively streamline the process for development. And that is allowing them to reserve some amount of capacity at the outset by effectively you're putting a deposit down. It's a non-refundable deposit in the event they don't otherwise proceed. The question then becomes, how do you allow for that money to be called back? And it would have to be done basically by contract. So it would be a decision by the developer to take the risk of pre-funding the amount. If the development is not built within a certain amount of time, they would, by written agreement, agree to basically forego the money that they paid towards the initial impact fee deposit. And so it would be an agreement that would effectively change the money at that point from being an impact fee to basically being a refundable deposit or a non-refundable deposit, almost like an option to purchase is the way that we would treat it. But to the higher level question of whether or not you want to do it at all, that's a more fundamental policy-based function that the board, I think, needs to consider, knowing the cost that the system does have, the expansion costs that we've talked about previously. The idea of theoretically reserving capacity for another developer means that someone else that comes in and requests it will be booked against the checkbook to the extent that it is otherwise allocated, and that does theoretically reduce your service capacity. And so that's a kind of a baseline question that needs to be answered, I think, at the board level as to whether or not it's something you even want to pursue before we even get into the details of how the money may get reallocated or absorbed in the event the development fails.
Chris, was the reservation of capacity for the collection system or the plant or both?
It would be for both. The area that we have more concern with immediately is obviously portions of the collection system where we have deficiencies out there now, very limited capacity. If we can get it to the plant, we are well over 1 million gallons, 1.5 million gallons away from when we have to begin the upgrade portion to the treatment plant. Sir?
You get the right development to come in, that can go very quickly too.
It could. It very well could. But if it hit certain parts of the system, it's going to happen anyway, because again, if they built, just for the sake of this case here, if they were going to put 1 million gallon development across the street from us here, it's going to hit us right away. We don't have any restrictions in the pipeline for that. We'd be able to convey that very easily to us. My thought with this, in putting this together, is more for what is in the basins and the collection system more so than it is for the treatment plant. Also, too, there's going to be times where you'll have an investor or a developer that is going to need to make capital improvements, expand a pump station
That
or.
was the next thing. If you're reserving capacity, if somebody comes in and takes up 95% of the capacity in a certain basin, well, that limits anybody else from coming in for at least up to 3 years. But in the meantime, you could have had a dozen others come in, and actually this, the large large developer would get the benefit of using up that capacity, so anyone that comes in after him is gonna have to pay, or else either cost us an upgrade or future developments an upgrade. And, that may cut out a lot of smaller opportunities there too. I don't know, I don't have a good feeling about it overall. Several things like that kind of bug me about it, but.
So I want to ask, why do this? What's the impetus?
Just to have something, because again, we've had, I think of one, there's been two developments. One, being the target itself, where we wouldn't have been able to handle the capacity for that one if Seneca didn't reserve the initial 60,000.
But do you really want to use Target as the example of seeing how they treated this entity and the rest of the ratepayers of Oconee County?
Well,
You want to hold that one up as your star example?
Then I'll use a different one. There's another one that is in the vicinity that has approached us. It's not inside any of the cities, but it's it's between a couple of the cities, and so a pump station upgrade would be required. But before they went and procured the property to do their development, which they would have to do in phases, because we can only support, I can't remember exactly what the gallons per day was that we could support with the existing infrastructure without an upgrade. But say it was 40% of whatever they ultimately wanted to do. They're of course hesitant to look at acquiring the property and doing the upgrades on our system if they don't think that if they go ahead and move forward with that, if somebody else is going to come in and purchase or get the capacity that they do for the upgrades on the system that they pay for that would help to serve them.
Why is that this entity's problem?
Well, we would require, and it's not necessarily, we would require, if we're going to do an upgrade to the station, we would upgrade it more than it would, just like what was done at the Seneca Creek station. It would be done for more than what would be to just serve that one single development. We would go ahead and do the 20-year build out for that new station or whatever infrastructure would be needed, besides what would be necessary for that one development. They would be responsible for paying the portion of
Could
that.
you not require that as part of their development?
We would, or we could, we wouldn't fund the improvement ourselves to pay for that. We would have them to do that. That's been our practice in the past, much like what was done with Brent Little's project.
Well, I was thinking of Brent Little's project. He came in, he didn't need this.
Well, we ended up having an agreement with him that we would waive the impact fees for him in lieu of the capital investment, because the impact fees, I think, were around $1.5 million.
Right. I got that, but this entity benefited from that compromise, correct?
Yes, sir, it did.
So when you put a policy like this together, what you're doing is you're reserving capacity for people who are going to make money off of the development on the backs of the people who are paying rates today.
We would have the upgrades would be required where the benefit would be as well, but there also would be that collection of the impact fee.
But that's the risk of the developer. The developer chooses what to do or not to do based off the risk and the amount of money they expect to make. What I see this as being is some type of corporate welfare for the folks who are making tons of money off the development. You're helping them hold capacity away from anybody else who's standing in line, like Scott said, who's ready to pay full freight today. You're keeping those people away. You're picking winners and losers indiscriminately, in my opinion, based off this policy. And I don't see a cap nor a transferability clause in this policy. So if I came in and bought it, I held it for 3 years, I then decided to hand it over to Scott. I won't pick on Scott Paris, I pick on him all the time. I'll pick on Scott McLean today. I want to hand it over to Scott, then he holds it for 3 years. What's to keep that from happening in perpetuity? All along you've got local developers that are looking to come in and have some type of project that they could get going. You also inhibit the Oconee Economic Alliance's ability to come in and put in any development if you've held some capacity away because you don't know what else they may be working on at the same time that would need to be in that same basin. Again, I think you're picking winners and losers indiscriminately, and you're also, by giving it at a 25 cent on the dollar rate, why would you not charge $1.25 for it? Should be 125% instead of 25% if they want to reserve capacity. They're the developers, they're the ones who stand to make the most money on it, not the average person that's paying rates into the system. And what about transferability?
I would consider it not to be transferable.
It doesn't say it in the policy.
That's
And so if I have an entity and I say all heirs and assigns, doesn't that mean anything I own then goes to whoever my heirs and assigns would be? So without a non-transferability clause in there, you can keep this thing moving as long as anybody wants to. And if I wanted to block Celia from putting something in, couldn't I come in and reserve that capacity at 25 cents on the dollar instead of paying full freight so that she can't do her development?
So, Kevin, the way I think we dealt with that is that there is not an abject prohibition on assignment, but there's also not authorization for an extension after the initial period without coming back to the full board. So it's a hard cap number. It can't continue to get rolled.
It can't go past 3 years. I thought there was at least one extension clause in there.
No.
The only extension that would be is they have to obtain the next construction permit within that 3-year time frame. And I think have 90 days after that, if I remember correctly, have to get all the paperwork submitted to DES and receive their construction permit. That would begin, if it's a 3-phase, 4-phase, that would begin when the next 3-year period would start.
So if I came in and got a portion of the permit, a permit for a small portion of the next phase, would that qualify? And then just roll this over?
That's a good question. I
mean,
think
say if it's
that would.
Yeah, say there's, $1 million project for phase one, but I come in and do $100,000 worth it. Well, there's a construction permit, but that satisfies this, and they can roll that on.
Well, now that I think about that,
I mean, that way it would tie it up the way you're saying.
yeah.
I think you're looking forward to some litigation by the way you've got it designed. And then the other thing, have you had DES review the policy to see if they have any consternation with it?
I can't imagine them getting involved. I had not had them review it, but I can't imagine them getting involved.
We have them review everything else related to our sewer use and regulation policy.
Well, that's just a sewer use regulation to make sure that it complies with the federal law. Unless Lawrence or.
Yeah, rate making is the exclusive domain of the commission board as you otherwise see fit. And impact fees in particular are authorized by state law so long as you comply with provisions of 6-1-1080.
And
So
you don't
I
see
think
this as
within-
anything beyond rate setting?
No, because capacity is, while your checkbook is obviously registered by DES, the way that it's ultimately allocated and how you assign those costs back is an internal methodology.
Okay, and then tell me again why you think it's not transferable, Lawrence?
I didn't say it wasn't transferable. I said it was not extendable. But I think to Scott's point, that point is well made. Theoretically, it could be added for a 6-year period if you had a construction permit that was issued and then transferred after the fact. But the assignment does not otherwise extend the term.
I don't know, I guess I look at, and I don't really want to hold any particular project up, I call it out by name, one way or the other, but I look at what the Brent Little project did. And I saw how there's this whole company behind him, was looking to make money off that development, so they came in and they found a way to make their money by following the rules that we have in place. By putting something like this in here, you're going to start picking the winners and choosers and setting up some battlegrounds between folks who are willing to pay full freight from the day they walk in the door to the people who are just looking to kind of bat stuff around. And I don't know why that's our business. And I'm against the policy, completely as it's written. I don't think it needs to take place. Right before we started, the meeting, Marty McKee, were you talking about the 50s or the 60s, what it was like to grow up in, Oconee County? 60s. You weren't going all the way back to the 50s. And the dynamics of how this place has changed in that amount of time, but then especially what has happened since COVID. Every single one of us at this table have seen drastic amounts of growth going on. Seneca, my goodness, the amount that you have coming off of the university is just absolutely phenomenal. Why make a discounted system when you got people who will show up and pay full freight? I remember Tom Wincott at one of those input meetings we had said they will come to Oconee County every day of the week because the land's cheaper and the regulatory environment is favorable toward developers. Why make it more so? Does Rewa have a policy like this? Does Anderson? Does Charleston?
Rewa, I did reach out to them, and they do have a policy. It's not similar to us. I couldn't find anybody that had one that was similar to us, but they do have some type of policy that allows for reservation of capacity. They were interested to see how this went for us, to see if they would like to consider modeling something like what we would have for them. I'm open, and again, if it doesn't move forward, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine with that. I was just looking at this as a way, based on those couple, those 2-3 projects that we've had, to allow them to, if they're gonna invest, tens of millions of dollars in land and construction, to allow them to build out the full phase of what they envision doing and not be restricted, when they complete phase 1 and they can't be certified phase 2 because somebody else came in and took capacity.
Yeah,
Well, that's when I think they go the Brent Little route. They come in, they pay, and they put the capacity in, and then you keep moving.
And then by agreement, what we
Or
did
they
with
pay for
Mr.
the
Little,
upsides.
so again, I'm open, whatever the will of the board wishes to do.
Yeah,
whether it's-
initially when I heard this, I was putting myself in the developer's position with regards to investment in a piece of property and development of that property and any upgrades to the infrastructure that would be required, paying for that, and then not having that future phase development capacity reserved. I would have then just upgraded and paid for all these other developers behind me to come in and eat it up before I even get to 2 and 3, but.
Well, you can always go ahead and pay for 2 and 3.
Right, but let me finish. Hearing your arguments today, I'm not so sure I'm in favor of it anymore. There were some good points made regarding picking winners and losers. And, if you want to pay to play. We're not short on development. We're not short on people willing to build here, obviously. So I don't see any need for it, having heard some of those arguments. So I actually was in favor of it initially, but not anymore.
Same here, yeah, until I heard.
That's why we bring it to the board for the
Absolutely.
other opinions. So.
And if I may say too, after hearing some of the positions here, at the very least, if we did decide to move forward with it, I do think we need to capture some of the items that have been brought in about, making sure it's clear in there about that there is an expiration, that it is non-transferable. So my recommendation based on this is at the very least, if we don't just shoot it down today, that we at least extend it and not approve it as stated.
Initially, I was
until we
thinking maybe
address
we
those.
reduce the time, right? Instead of giving them 3 years,
Yeah.
maybe we give them a year of reservation until they can show some type of, plan towards phase 2 or timeline or, some type of completed work towards that, but pay to play.
I was
I
saying.
think they're lining up, or I feel like they're lined up right now, and we're just trying to survive the line. And whoever's in front right now has this policy that may be their ticket to stove up some of the people behind them.
So with that said, I could guess a couple things here. May I just, on the agenda, may I request that it be withdrawn, or does this need to be voted on to deny?
Well, we have a motion, a first and a second, so And just so everybody's clear, this is just, one voice in this. I'm not in favor of a policy like this at all. Unless they're paying a premium that is gonna benefit the existing ratepayers and the eventual upgrade of this plant, I'm not in favor of any type of discount or policy that in some way restricts those two things.
Well, and using your Brent Little argument, if a big developer comes in and wants to spend the money to upgrade the capacity, and we qualify that as their impact fee payment, then it's
Exactly.
reserved at that point, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way he did it, he knew he was gonna make money on it. He worked that into his risk calculation. I think anybody else is playing on that level to do the same thing.
I'm gonna
Just
change my
in my
mind.
opinion.
Ms. Myers, what's your thoughts about this? I represent you in Westminster. So.
No, I just had a couple questions. If they were to pay the full amount, such as the ones you said in 2008, 2009, they paid the full amount, but then they went bankrupt. Subdivision doesn't get finished when we all had a ton of roads across the upstate. I know you said that it was just a couple of years ago when you went back and reclaimed that million. What is the policy moving forward, or how often you go back and reclaim any capacity that has been bought but may not actually be used? Because that's also going against our checkbook.
And let me throw in a little bit from years back when this was initially done, when Mr. Winchester was in Chris's position. We had several plants shut down, Beacon, Avondale, and Walhalla. And there were several around that were gone. Of course, Clemson, there where the development is now. And he just took the time and looked back at the books to see who was still in operation, who wasn't, saw the capacities, made an application to DHEC, and I think it was well over 1 million gallons of capacity, you may remember. But he applied to have that reallocated back to the plant because the flow was no longer there. The entities were no longer there. They didn't exist, so there was no mechanism to refund any. And some of those were on the books originally.
Base flow.
As the base flow. So that was another part of it. Some of them had expansion that they had paid some impact fees on at some point. I think the impact fee ordinance went in, 1990?
1990, yes, sir.
But the fact that they did not exist, there was no one to go back to.
Yeah, you can't refund that one, but if it was a subdivision that was moving forward and they were gonna have 3 phases and they were going to pay up front, but then another bubble hits and they only get phase 1 of the other. Maybe they just don't finish that one, but there's still someone there. We have to refund it. I'm not trying to really play devil's advocate. I'm just trying to make sure we look at all
I guess my
sides.
question is, when the impact fee is paid and the capacity is allocated, does it belong to the land or does it belong to the developer?
It belonged to the land.
So can you literally claw that back if the developer
If the bank
does
takes
not
over
complete the
And that's-
project?
to finish
And
it.
so this is a question that I've asked Lawrence. This was,
So would the reservation be better in that circumstance than payment of full capacity?
Because you at least still get that 25%.
Lawrence, this goes back several months ago. I mentioned that we had issued a letter stating that we would accept flow from a project, subdivision, that it was going to move forward. They have a construction permit from the state, and the builder decided to kind of sit on it. He felt that the prices were too high at that time to build. So he applied for an extension of the construction permit, which the state granted. We didn't have any input or notice into it. So that they have made it, I guess, a 3-year permit into a 5 or 6 year permit. But we don't currently have a mechanism in place to cancel or call that back. And that's something I think we do need to discuss in the future, that if they do not move forward with it within a certain time frame, that we do have the ability to purchase that capacity back from them. But this is something that we even discussed. It was after the new fiscal year and after the new impact fee policy was adopted, and there was no way that we would be able to go back and retroactively force this guy to go ahead and construct or return the capacity back to us at the price he rated for, correct?
No, I think that from a policy standpoint, if it's not being used and you refund him the money, you don't. No one is firmly committed the opportunity to build, and so as long as it's done as a policy function and is universally applied, it can be done on a policy basis, but it has to be formally adopted and put in place. And so you can't just go back and call his capacity back and reimburse him, just on a lark. You can't pick winners, as I think it's been said, you can't pick winners and losers.
Right.
But there absolutely needs to be justification for who you provide service to, and you can't just have someone that wants to come in and hold capacity hostage. That defeats the entire purpose of growing your system. So we have gone through that before, and that may be a more thoughtful exercise on your capacity policy writ large. But if someone is sitting on capacity, we need to redeem that capacity and reimburse them for their costs, and they can resubmit.
Yeah, but they have an active construction permit right now with the state, so without them requesting to have that revoked.
Got it. So they do have an active, sorry, I missed that part.
Yes, they have an active construction
That
permit.
becomes much more difficult.
If their construction permits have expired, there's no activity, there's no contact from the developer, Chris can't get in touch with them, how would you go about refunding? And then also there's the time involved, the cost we would have of Chris's time involved in calculating that. The question is, would would there be any recovery of that kind of cost just to recover that capacity? Or, that makes sense what I'm saying, but.
If the construction permit's expired, then you could go through that same process and rebate the prepaid monies and
If you can find the developer.
reapply the existing capacity. Being able to recover your costs of running the utility, I think, is probably a far cry and subjects you to some exposure that we probably don't want.
One of the big selling points for me when we discussed this was that we don't refund anything. Once that developer comes in and gets his capacity set up, whether it's, I agree with him about making it 100% or 100 or whatever. Once we get it, we never refunded it, and that I was thinking that would make a developer more, well, let me make sure I'm really going to do this before I pay this money, because I'm not going to get it back. That was the way I was thinking. So incorrectly or correct, I don't want to give anybody any money back once they've gone through this.
So again, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I am, based on what I've heard tonight, I am fully supportive of withdrawing this or requesting additional amendments to it before it does come back, but I'm fine with.
So we have a motion and a second. What is the pleasure?
I'm willing to withdraw my motion as long as I know that the majority would support me doing that.
And Kevin, just while it's on the table, I apologize, I know you're asking to wrap it up, but there are two just kind of additional thoughts I want to at least put out there while you're discussing the policy. The first one would be limiting the scope to only developers within Oconee County. So basically making the ability to reserve capacity something that is a reservation solely for local developers. That's basically an incentive to folks that live in your communities. So that's at least one kind of additional component of it, so that you're not favoring an out-of-town developer over the local guys. You're actually giving local guys a leg up to develop, within your community. And then separately, another thing Chris and I had talked about was the idea that a lot of this is coming from the county, who is pushing the agenda for development to occur. And the idea is, theoretically, if the county wants it, the county could come in and purchase some proportional share of capacity that they could then allocate as development comes along that they want to utilize. So just two other kind of additional, green shoots off of this discussion that may merit further discussion and maybe at the committee level, but I at least want to put it back out there so that everyone kind of knows where we're coming from. I don't think there's a particular pride of authorship in any of this drafting. We just want to make sure that we get the policy that best encapsulates the board's desires for how you want growth and development to occur in the county.
So should we table this for now? More thought?
I was just sitting here thinking that I think that the discussion generated enough questions that it would warrant further discussion later on, or not even another consideration. But I'd like to withdraw my motion, but that can't happen unless whoever seconded withdraws their second as well. I don't remember who it was.
Is it David Dial? I think it was.
That was Mr. Val.
I'll be glad to withdraw it.
Okay. so
Now, I mean, obviously, for point of order, if anybody else disagrees with me, they have the right now to make the motion to approve it, to push it forward to a vote, but, I'm withdrawing my motion and the second's been
Withdrawing
withdrawn.
mine.
So I just know there's enough questions there.
Appreciate y'all's conversation. I learned a lot today.
All right, so we have it withdrawn, so there's no other discussion related to that item. Do you have everything you need from the board to know what to do or not to do, Chris?
I was about to say, would it help if I make a motion to send this back to O&P and then y'all can decide based on the questions you heard to either amend or not to bring it back up?
I would support that, absolutely.
We're willing to take that back up, Mr. Chair, if you want us to.
I'll make a motion to send it back to O&P for further consideration and revision.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good discussion, good discussion.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item H4, approve FY 2026 supplemental budget number 2.
As Ms. Myers reported from the FMA committee, this is to make the portion where we get reimbursed the county for them fronting that grant, to make them whole and also to capture it on our, in our financial reports and records. So,
And you've already made 2 payments for that total amount back to.
yeah, so that's correct. So if you look at the front of Exhibit E, you'll see the line that would be modified, which is the second one from the very bottom, the 198,664 under the 1301-1401 retail O&M fund. And then on the back is Ms. Stamey's letter, and I added those notes onto the left-hand side of it to add those 2 reimbursements together to get that total sum that she shows there that's highlighted. So I do recommend that we go ahead and approve supplemental budget number 2.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to
We have a motion. Motion and second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item H5, approve 2026 OJRSA Board Committee meeting schedule, Exhibit F. Chris Elliott.
Exhibit F, this schedule is a little bit different from the ones that we've had in years past because it now changes all of the December meetings to a 2 p.m. start time so that we don't run into us having to call and try to make last minute adjustments. In the future, I believe Mr. Mulder mentioned that the City of Seneca's Christmas parade is always the first Monday, even if that may be like next year, I think it's on December 7th would be the first Monday of the month, so it would still conflict with the board meeting that we have. So everything else typically is going to be the same. We did modify the January 5th meeting for this coming year, which would be a one-time thing, which would allow the board meeting to start at 5 o'clock as opposed to 4, and the annual members meeting to begin at 6 instead of 5, and this was to allow the swearing in of the Westminster Council new members and I guess existing to council. So those are some items that were discussed at FMA and have been modified and incorporated into next year's public meeting.
Zane, do we have any we want to change so that we can change one too?
All right, is there a
Well,
motion?
the January 5th is finished by 8 o'clock or so, that'd be great.
It should be. That one,
I'll gavel him down.
There's 750 if you can gavel it down, so we can haul butt. Now, the likelihood of replaying that day is not.
I think last year it was maybe an hour or so for the annual members. My goal
Isn't
is
that
to
just
try to
where Chris
get that.
talks? We
Yes.
gavel him down after 20 minutes. if you want.
You're gonna wait that long?
All right, do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Moving on, item I, Executive Director's discussion and compliance matters.
All right, Mr. Chair, I have nothing for item number 1 regarding environmental and regulatory. Item 2, Thornwell Target Development Update. We have sent those amended fees based on their modified construction permit discussion that we had with them back a couple of weeks ago. Those have been sent to them. Their engineer has completed his portion of the capacity fee or the capacity permit application with us and has sent it over to the developer to complete their portion of it and then return it to us with the payment of those impact fees. So I received an email earlier today. They anticipate having that to us by the end of the week or first part of next week. So that should put a bow on that, hopefully, and then we'll be moving forward. One thing I do need that I would like to speak with Lawrence about, and I tend to do this, is one of those things I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about over the weekend, was once they do pay their fees to us and they procure the capacity in our treatment plant, then we will need just to make sure that they go and request the recension of the capacity they've already allocated, that has been allocated to the plant and revised with the new letter. We need to give them some type of a deadline or firm statement in there that they will do it within 5 days, 10 business days, something along those lines, or else whatever the attorney may recommend to us. We haven't even had that discussion yet at all, but that would be something I'll have him look at. Any questions about that?
The modified impact fees, were they lower or higher?
The fees are the same, because the fee is the fee. The gallons of capacity they're gonna be coming back with is substantially lower.
Okay.
Thus, the total amount they're gonna be paying for the fee is lower. So they're reducing the construction permit by half or more than half of their initial request. And what we will do following that will be to permit each building on site. It won't even be the phases. It'll be when they apply for a building permit for each of the new buildings is to be built within what they're constructing now. They will pay impact fees and permit those independently with us. And then I will then notify DES to add those to the checkbook manually at that time. That's what we agreed to, and I was fine to do it that way.
Thank you.
Any other questions about that one? All right, item 3, election of officers and committee appointments. So at the board meeting on January 5th, very early on in that meeting will be our 2-year voting on or deciding on who will be the chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and committee assignments. And I'll send out a list of that prior to the meeting, so everybody will know who's on what committee currently, and so we can begin thinking about that, so we can kind of expedite that at the following meeting.
Can we go ahead and just do it now?
Well, I like the idea whoever misses January meeting is to be chairman of the meeting. That's what happens
Just
to
not
me.
past
I will be. We'll sail through it.
And then finally, as several mentioned, I appreciate the discussion. That was really good feedback that we got on that item today.
I feel sorry for Lynn.
Think about how do too. There's a lot to discuss there, but it was good. What is it? Many advisors are better than one when considering something. So it made us certainly think of some items that we did not consider the first time, and after the discussion, I'm absolutely fine doing whatever the wishes are of the O&P as well as this board all the way up to and including just not even considering at all, but we'll bring that back. So I do appreciate that. And lastly, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I'll see some of y'all, if not most of you, at one of the committee meetings, I'm sure, coming up. We will have a couple of things that we will need to do to bring to the January meeting, but I'll try to keep those super short. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, moving on to item J, Commissioners' discussion.
I just have one item. I just wanted to offer on behalf of the Senate Guard, thanks to everybody for your willingness to accommodate our parade night and move the time to this time. So I know everybody's schedules are pretty set. We just
I just had to shave and take a bath early today.
Officially, thank you guys. And then give it consideration for every first Monday after that. So thank you very much on behalf of the city. So.
All right, unless there are any objections, by acclamation, I'll declare us adjourned. I learned that. By acclamation, I mean, let's do it.